Well, hello, Mr. Robert Craven. How are you doing today?
Hey Rob, how are you, man?
I'm fantastic. Yeah.
Good.
You're looking healthy and alive and just all these things that when I hear your name, I think of. We've known each other for almost 10 years, I think.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a
Yeah, yeah.
while.
Yeah, and lots of different journeys and adventures we've been on. And speaking of adventures, you're kind of created something new and exciting. Find your way adventures. Or
Yeah, Findaway Adventures. Yeah, we're having a blast. We're angel investment platform, I like to call it. We invest in startups and smaller businesses in the consumer packaged goods space that have kind of a social mission focused on social impact. And our goal is to be the minor leagues that produces really great impact-minded brands for private equity. And we believe that the valuation is higher for these kinds of brands for all the right reasons, and that private equity and strategics are looking for great impact-minded brands that can speak to the consumer in a deeper way. So,
okay, so what? Tell me about impact-driven brands. Like we're hearing a lot of sustainable brands, purpose-driven. There's been a lot of environmentally driven brands, but impact-driven brands. Like, what are you talking about here?
yeah, it's a great question. I think it's one of those things that's so broad for me. What it comes back to for my partners and I is meeting that founder that's got a passion in their heart that's a little deeper than just making money. They want to use their brand, their platform, their voice to make a difference in some way. And I happen to believe that folks are gifted skills and talents that are supposed to line up to help them make the world a better place. Entrepreneurs are a great example of that. Rob, you're a great example of that. Entrepreneurs that take their gifts and talents and aim it towards making the world a better place in some way, not just through the product and not just by making money and stroking checks, but by really using their platform and their brand to widen the message around what impact might mean, whether it's DEI or climate change or agriculture or a local community, even broader community or a local community, whatever that impact might be. I think it's incumbent upon great investors and mentors to support entrepreneurs that are trying to make an impact, not just make money with their brand. And you and I have done a lot of work around B Corp. B Corps are a great example of this. The commitment to B Corp is more than just 1% for the planet. That's a great effort, but it's more than that. It's a commitment to local, a commitment to how you treat your employees. How you build your business is just as important as what you do with the profit in that business, which I think is casts a pretty wide net. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I guess one of the things, and you have a lot of experience with this and your whole history and just the different adventures that you've been on. And I like the word adventure over venture, right? And
me too. Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, it is an adventure, and every day there's something new. And navigating it with a J stroke or a C stroke, if for the paddles that you have there behind you,
Exactly.
make all the difference whether you hit that rapid head on or if you're able to navigate the what is it, the V that you want to go through as you have the turbulence on either side of you. But I guess the question for you, Robert, and one of the things I look to you as and celebrate you as is a great leader. What sort of leadership is required in these impact-driven brands?
Sort of leadership. I think that the connection that the founder has to their inner purpose and passion is central to being a good leader. Most of the entrepreneurs I meet have an aura about them that attracts people to their cause. So especially an entrepreneur, when you're first starting out, you can't always afford to pay folks, that are skilled or have years and years of experience in a particular, area of the business, whether it be operations or sales or whatever. So you attract these folks and they'll just do whatever you need them to do, on your team, which is what makes entrepreneurism so different from like scaling a larger business. And I think that aura that they put off comes from this connection to their purpose and passion. And then there's a set of other skills that you might need to have. But I think it's central around that central core. All the rest of it can be learned. You can learn, you can partner with a co-manufacturer to create some really great products. You can partner with a sales broker to help you launch on sales. You can partner with great companies like yours to really help on the social impact and kind of formalize that a little more. But that central core characteristic of, damn, if I don't change the world, nobody's going to, if I don't fix this problem, no one's going to, is something that I love and admire in all the entrepreneurs that we back at Findaway and all the leaders I've met, throughout my 20 some odd years in the natural product space and retailers. And I mean, they just got that inner flame that everybody wants to be around, right? That wants to be drawn to that. And I think that's really core for every great entrepreneur to have that first before you start kind of thinking it through. I have met some other entrepreneurs, Rob, that just did the business plan, that went to B school and identified a market opportunity and did the B plan and, kind of studied the competition and put their product together. But I just don't feel like that brand is going to be as successful in the long run as these brands that are really driven by passion and purpose and kind of, cranking up their brand to really do something broader than just make money.
Yeah. And I love that aura. Like as you're talking, a handful of individuals come to mind of
for sure
who have that. And it's something that you can't measure. It's a feeling, right? And I think especially, with what you're doing with Findaway, putting funds into organizations, how do you measure that aura? Like, is that intuition? Are you so tapped into your own intuition that you're able to just say, hey, yeah, like I feel what you're doing. Like there's got to be some technicals that line up, but at the end of the day, is it's like how much of the aura is weighed in the measurement of who you partner with?
Yeah, some of it is feel, right, Rob? I mean, you've just been in this for a long time and you get that feel from people. Like when I ask someone, what are you passionate about? And they go on for 10 or 15 minutes, and you can tell they've got stories and it's impacted them in the right way. That's part of it. Pre-pandemic and to some degree during the pandemic, I spend a lot of time with the entrepreneurs before we make the investment. So I fly out and spend a couple of days with them. I'm a big fan of breaking bread. Tell me your story. Tell me your family. Let's get into the depth of the history. And is there a match there? So we spend a lot of time with the founders figuring that out. And I don't want to minimize the left brain side of this too. You got to have a founder that's committed and has a motor and a deep fuel tank and knows how to put a pro forma together and can sell the product, et cetera. Knows how to pick partners and things like that. So there's a left brain side of this as well, kind of a logical. You've got to have some skills. But spending time with the entrepreneurs, spending real time. In fact, I've got other entrepreneurs that I really love who are looking to take an investment, and it might not be a good investment for us. For example, it might not fit our criteria. And they're like, "What's your biggest advice, for picking an investor?" The flip side of this. And I'm like, go spend a weekend with them somewhere, like get a hotel room, and you don't have to stay in the same room, but sit by the pool and have conversations and drink a cocktail and really spend time getting to know them outside of the work space. Good friend of mine, Jethrin Phillips, who started Spectrum Oils, used to say all the time, money has energy. And so understanding that the money side of this as well, the entrepreneurs have to do a good job of interviewing the money as well and understanding what that energy is. And it goes both ways is also another, key part of this for me. It just takes time. You have to commit the time to really pick, kind of get married to that entrepreneur, and the entrepreneur needs to feel like they're getting married to the investor, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And, I guess the aura of the entrepreneur and the aura of the investment of the money, like there is that energy piece. And I think we forget sometimes that, there are energies that are attached to everything. Right. And, having that awareness and, one of the things, Robert, that you're part of this mastermind group that we had called Spiral Table. Yep. And I remember talking about just kind of these concentric circles, and an organization can't be any more conscious than its leadership. And at the core is this leader who's conscious. And one thing that you introduced me to and introduced to the group at Spiral Table was this idea of conscious leadership. And, what is it? Being committed to being curious, as being open to being curious, as opposed to being committed to being right. And how is that? How's that? That advice? How has that been lived in your life, and specifically with Findaway Adventures, like, how are you curious? And I mean, you're a curious individual in a good way. How have you been curious with some of these companies that you've been looking at and you've been exploring?
Yeah, the whole concept of conscious leadership group, 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership is the book. I stumbled into this through YPO in Boston, Young Presidents Organization. In Boston, they're just deep on it there. And so I've been practicing now for, 6 or 8 years. And I'm actually halfway through the Conscious Leadership coaches program that Conscious Leadership Group teaches. So it's kind of a certification for coaches. Mm-hmm. And I'm so committed to it because I think it's so crucial for especially founders. Change the World founders we can all get below the line. They call it above the line and below the line. And it's not that below the line is bad. It's just, and there's lots of learning there, but it's becoming more and more aware of the stories you make up about the world. And so commitment number 1, for example, is 100% responsibility. And part of that is taking 100% responsibility for the fact that we make up stories about the world. And I've met lots of founders who can make up really grandiose, great stories, but a lot of times they don't give themselves a break and they make up that things are bad. And that's a story around the facts. So that's part of it. Commitment number 2 is curiosity, for example. Commitment, which we talked about. Commitment number 3 is all about feelings. Feeling your feelings all the way through as a way to learn and become more aware. Commitment number 4 is about candor. So there's these 15 commitments that is really kind of an operating manual for how to be in the world, not just with yourself, which is vitally important, but also with other people. And when you start building a team and understanding that these tools around conscious leadership become a set of principles and worksheets and a tool chest that you can go to really pick out ways to really interact more consciously with yourself and with others. So I spend a lot of time with the founders that we work with at Findaway talking about this and coaching them through it and helping them to see the difference between their stories versus the facts, helping them really tap into why they're telling themselves these stories. And all those things are meant to kind of broaden their awareness in the world and be more present. We also talk a lot about this concept of zone of genius. So some people can be very passionate about it, but not necessarily be in their zone of genius. I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs who thought they were entrepreneurs because they were passionate about a subject, but weren't necessarily entrepreneurs. It wasn't their zone of genius. Their zone of genius is something that you could fall out of bed tomorrow and do. It's like my zone of genius is talking to you right now. I could talk about this all day long, right? I could stand up in front of a group of 5,000 or 50,000. You could put me on the stage in 10 minutes and I would feel comfortable in my zone of genius talking about what I love to do, which is supporting change the world entrepreneurs as they scale their business, right? So that's a zone of genius versus zone of excellence where we can get caught into, or even zone of competence. And so spend a lot of time talking about that and making sure the entrepreneurs we work with are leaning towards that zone of genius, can identify what it is, can create a vision of what that is. So all these tools from conscious leadership help line up a way to be in the world that I think helps bring success to our companies.
Absolutely. And I love that, and I love a couple things that you said there, really just this change the world leaders or change the world founders. Right. And I guess one of the questions I have, as a broad stroke is, other leaders that maybe aren't change the world leaders, like what do you think business leaders need to let go of to better navigate their path forward in the world right now?
Yeah, it's funny. It's so funny because before Findaway, a while back, before Megafood even, I was doing some coaching, and my business card basically said, "I'm the guy change the world founders call when they're ready to scale their business." And I would give that card to people at a networking event, and they're like, "Well, what's a change the world founder?" And I'd start kind of talking. I'd ask them some questions. Why'd you get into this business? What are you looking to achieve? And the ones that said, "Well, I want to buy a really big house and a big boat," I'm like, "Hey, great, man. Good luck. You're not my ideal client. I can't bring the energy to you that I might someone who's got a different kind of." And some of them would say, "Well, how do I become a change the world founder? Like, how do I integrate that into my business? Because that's not what we're taught in B school. Typically, they're starting to now." And my whole thing, and then I started asking things like, was there any events that happened to you very young that sticks in your head, or that, or when you see an injustice in the world, you just get really triggered? Or is there a nonprofit you're involved in, or a charity that you really love? And it doesn't have to be with business or your brand at all. It doesn't have to do anything with that. But where is that fire burning? Is it diversity? Is it inclusion? Is it climate change? What is it? And I get them going on that. And when I see their spark going, I can then say, there it is. Okay. So then it's, once you've identified what that spark is, you can start to work into, how do I bring this to my business? Mm-hmm. And so for CEOs, that's much easier. CEOs or founders, much easier to kind of guide your business towards that and start to integrate that in. You and I have talked about this, I think, Rob. I talk about sticking your toe in the water on things like, 1% for the planet. You don't have to become a B Corp right away, but stick your toe in, feel how it feels, stick your foot in. You know what I mean? You don't have to do a cannonball into the water in terms of turning your business into a social impact or B Corp, minded business. But kind of ease in. And what I've found is when people ease in, especially if it's touching the heart of the leader, if it's really that core passion, it feeds itself. You want to go faster and faster, and it starts to become much easier to integrate it in. And the other point I'll make, a great concept called Creating Shared Value by Michael Porter. Mm-hmm. Economic impact, social impact, shared value. Those two things come together. So there's techniques you can use to integrate social impact into your day-to-day strategy. And that's big for us because we want the businesses we're involved in to have that social impact baked in, so that if they do sell to a strategic like we did with Megafood, that strategic can't muck it up, okay? Because it's so core, the brand is so core, so tightly bound to social impact that whoever invests or whoever takes it to the next level can't muck it up or risk losing the whole brand. So there's ways to do that. There's ways to integrate that into your strategy, which we bring to our founders and really try to kind of help them understand. But it starts with that founder's core passion, really digging in on that.
Yeah, and that's a deeper why, right? And one of the pillars of conscious brands is higher purpose. And then another one is, how intrinsically engaged are your employees to that purpose? Like, how connected are my values to the values of the organization? And then empathetically connected customers. And I think it just comes down to that core of passion and change the world companies, right?
Your assessment is a great tool for that, Rob. I think, getting a sense of where the gaps are, where to work on it. Mm-hmm. But I would say, when the CEO or the founder really embraces that and starts to roll it out, it is very likely they will lose some people that didn't come to the business for that. In my experience, it's about 10%, maybe 20%, depending on how far away it is. But then you'll start to create this aura again that attracts people to the mission in a deeper way. So you end up attracting resumes that line up with your cultural values over time. So part of this is you can't be scared if people push back on you and might leave the business ultimately. But it's a bell curve. There's other people that'll love it and buy in and tell everybody about it. It becomes viral to some degree. Wow, this company is really cool because they're committed to this passion or this mission. But there are some downsides to this too. This flip.
There are, and kind of our theory of change with all this is, working on what's strong focusing on what's strong versus focusing on what's wrong, right? Correct. And just looking at those internal change agents, the people within the organization that really get it, that have grabbed that contagion of, if that's a word, of the aura and the energy that the founder or the core team has. And those people, and you can sense those people, and they are the champions within the organization. And it's a really exciting place to be with all that.
I can tell you 80 stories of people I've worked with that were just so passionate. I mean, so many come to mind. Many of these folks as well. Mm-hmm. I'm proud of the work that we did with all the companies I've been involved in terms of not just selling product and making a profit, which we did fine, and we sold, high multiples. We were successful from the monetary standpoints, but I mean, even collecting 40,000 signatures to ban glyphosate as a death skin on oats. I mean, things like that are just as important to me, and I'm probably even more proud of that, especially that the employees leaned in and drove that. I didn't drive it as a CEO. Mm-hmm. Our culture created a space where our employees could lean in and lead something like that kind of initiative, which clearly has an impact on the world around us and the people involved. I'm more proud of that than I am the monetary successes that we've had.
Well, it's just really paying that forward, right? Like 40,000 signatures, 40,000 impacts on, banning glyphosate. Like what is the actual, value to the ecosystem, to all the other, people, and not even just people, but life forms that benefit from those 40,000 signatures. Like the multiple on that is much greater from an ecosystem
Yeah.
services perspective. Yeah.
Yeah.
Robert, one question is, as we start to, you and I could talk for hours, and we have.
For sure. Sorry. I'll keep you on track here, man. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'll get. But what time do you think it is in the world right now?
Time do I think it is in the world? I think we're at a real crossroads, Rob. I think that the noise of social media and 24-hour news and even 24-hour sports and the the amount of fear as the core kind of emotion that keeps us below the line and kind of enslaved to other people's power. Fear is just a tool that people use to sell advertising or to sell the next candidate, or it's a tool that people use on us to make sure we stay enslaved to other people's power. And I think that the noise around the fear is accelerating. The volume around that is getting so loud that I think people are starting to feel the pain of that and starting to wake up to the fact that we don't have to choose the fear path, right? It's the story we make up that makes us fear. It's the ego, it's the amygdala, it's the fight flight, that just gets pounded on us every single day. And I'm very hopeful and actually very positive that we're going through a transition right now as a world around higher level consciousness. And we're birthing the baby, man. We're birthing this baby around higher level consciousness. And we're going through labor pains and it hurts. And not that I would have a clue how bad it hurts. But I was in the room with my two daughters and looked like it hurt. And it feels like consciously from a world standpoint, we're birthing this baby. And I'm hopeful and very positive that the baby's going to be beautiful once it's born, and there's going to be a higher level of awareness and a higher level of presence and consciousness in the world that's just going to heal the wounds that we're making up, we're feeling right now. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. And I could jump down that on that thread and just ride that wave for a long time. What I guess like with that, what's one piece of advice you would give? Not even just business leaders, because I think business leaders are just one area. But what's one piece of advice you would give to help people just kind of transcend that fear, that feeling of just under the line?
Wow, a lot of things come to mind. I would state I think business is really core to this transition, and through business consumers. Because if we work for businesses that give a damn, we become consumers that give a damn, and we start supporting other businesses that give a damn. So I think there's a thread there that's really interesting. Support businesses that give a damn, work for a business that gives a damn, start a business that gives a damn. I mean, there's a whole core there. But there's a woman named Byron Katie that wrote this amazing book called Loving What Is. And it's a series of 4 questions that you ask yourself when you get triggered or when you get fearful. And the first question is it true? And the reality is that almost nothing is 100% true. So, and the second question is it really true? Actually. So the first question is it true? The second question is it really true? And I think that that's been the key for me to kind of break out of these fear cycles. And once you can break out of these fear cycles, then it's plug into why you're on this earth. What are the gifts and skills and talents you've been given, and then go use them. And the more you're able to use those things, whether it's locally, in a community, at a church, at a school, or whether you're blessed to do something nationally or even globally, use those skills and tools. And the more you use those skills and tools, the more joy you will attract to yourself. And the more people that are doing that, the more joy that will get attracted. And, Malcolm Gladwell's tipping point will happen at some point as people wake up and feel this joy. But it starts with you addressing the fear that's inside. That's where I go back to that. Is it true? Is it really true? And the third question is, what would I be without this thought? Which is a really cool thought exercise. So it's connecting your personal situation, breaking the fear cycles, and then plugging into the joy and the energy that comes from really connecting into your purpose and passion and just doing it. Like, just go do it. Stop thinking about it. And once you're able to do that, then more and more people see that and get attracted to that, want to do it. And you get a tipping point going, which then, oh, by the way, solves all the reasons that we're afraid right now, ultimately. But it's a collective that has to get there. We have to birth the baby. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does, right? And what is there's a Martin Luther King quote about the moral arc of I'll put it in the notes. It's escaped me, but I think that we need to be actors in this play and be activators in this play, and we have a voice, and not being scared of the voice that we have, not being scared of all the news that we're hearing. And yeah, that fear weighs heavy, and just not being afraid of our own gifts, right? And our own values, and tapping into it. I really like that.
Well, we get angry and we get sad. Like, I see things in the world that make me angry, and I see things in the world that make me sad. And those things are fine. I mean, it's fine to feel those feelings. It's teaching us something. It's telling us something needs to be addressed in the world, right? Whether it's anger or sadness, underneath both of those feelings is fear. And so tapping into, why am I afraid, right? And a lot of times we're afraid because we're making up a story that this is never going to end, or this is always going to be this way. You know, things like never and always or should start to kind of take us off course. And once you can break that cycle and learn from it and apply it to what it is you're supposed to be doing on this planet, then things start to, I think individually things start to go a certain way, and you feel more joy. And then ultimately, collectively, that starts to really resonate. And that's birthing the baby, I think.
For sure. And we bring that joy to others as well, right? Like, and just kind of going back to that aura, those people 100%. that you want to be around, and those people that are kind of a little repulsive. Yeah. So the quote that I was going to say is the arc of the moral universe is long, but bends towards justice.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, that's hope, right? That's where hope comes in. And I just meet so many people these days that have no hope. And it's because their stories are wound so tight, and because others outside of them are feeding that story, daily, by the second, that they feel like it's hopeless. And that's not where Martin Luther King was going. That's not where, the greatest leaders in the world have gone. So it's, I'll give you a quick story. We're invested in a great little company called Hustle Clean out of Texas. And Wale and Justin are the founders, and they're so passionate about social impact. And when Haiti had their recent earthquake, they're like, what are we going to do? And they launched a webpage, and they're selling for everybody who donates their wipes. They have these shower wipes that they want to ship down to Haiti to help people that are homeless. And they're going to donate, to that. And so Findaway bought thousands of dollars worth of wipes. We're, pushing out to everybody to buy some wipes. There's money being donated to a very reputable charity in Haiti. But they figured this out in like 30 seconds. I was on a weekly call with them, and during our weekly call, I asked what was going on, and they went off on this for 15 minutes. That's the kind of passion. And they're using their platform and their thousands of social media followers to plug those people into a situation in Haiti that they feel very strongly about. And there's other initiatives that they're doing as well. I can tell you 3 or 4, but that's the kind of passion I love to see in CEOs and founders, and it feels good. And it creates an energy around the brand that people see and resonate with and want to support.
Yeah, and it is that authentic side of it. You can tell where there's the opportunist, and you can tell where it's authentic to the core
100%.
Of the organization. And yeah, it's just a really, I like that idea of hope, and just unplugging and going for a walk outside is one of the best parts of my day. Is just disconnecting and being in nature, or just even outside. Like, if you don't have access to nature, and just like suppressing all that 24-hour news feed that's coming at us. So, Robert Craven, what is one thing you can share with us? Like, where can we find some more information about either conscious leadership, about Findaway Adventures? Like, yeah, how can we find your gifts?
Yeah, sure. You can follow what we're up to at Findaway Adventures at findawayadventures.com. I write pretty extensively. We've got a blog that's linked at Findaway Adventures, and then on LinkedIn, Robert Craven. I post quite a lot on LinkedIn. My personal calling and my personal mission is to support change the world founders as they scale up their business, their change the world businesses. So I write a lot about that. I hang out with a lot of those folks. We're ramping up a new effort, not a new effort, but we're going to re-ramp up our Findaway Club. Findawayclub.com has a sign up that people can sign up for. But we do some trainings around nailing your strategy, leadership trainings. We're about to launch one around conscious leadership and how to start to kind of take baby steps towards integrating that into your business. So hopefully by the end of the year, we'll get that ramped up. And but all that can be found at findawayadventures.com. And there's an e-newsletter, 2-Tip Tuesday, that I send out that you can sign up for on findawayadventures.com, and that'll keep you updated.
That's awesome. We'll link all that in, I don't know if it'd be show notes or just in the footer of this, but
perfect.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much, Robert. And
yeah, buddy.
Always a pleasure. And even though we're, in different parts of the world and quite far away, I feel your aura and your joy through this technology. So
you too, man. What you're doing is awesome. And when we utilized you guys at MegaFood, I could have been happier. So keep up the great work.
Awesome. Thanks so much, sir. And we'll chat soon.
All right, buddy.
Bye.
Okay.